Welcome to LogiQ-On Talking Tech, the show about the future of workplace technology. From retail to logistics to warehousing, we break down how innovations like RFID are transforming operations. I'm Simon Wile. Let's get started. This episode is brought to you by LogiQ-On Tech, your partner in smarter retail and workplace technology. Learn more at logiqon.com.au. Welcome back to LogiQ-On Talking Tech. This is part 2 of our conversation with Steve Schenk on the future of RFID. In part 1, we looked at the fundamentals, why RFID matters, and how it's being adopted. And in this episode, we dive deeper into what's next. Overhead RFID, fitting room experiences, sustainability, and the evolving role of data in retail and logistics. Let's continue the conversation. Steve, we sort of spoke about what's happened in the past, what's happening overseas, and where we are in the present. Where do you see RFID going in the future?
Yeah, I think logistics is the big plus in terms of how we understand goods coming in to distribution centres and supply chain. So I think for all the users for all the use cases that we see at store level, all the fantastic use cases that we see at store level from the point of view of speed of count, speed of replenishment, speed of receipt, compressing the order to cash cycle from the point of view of, boxes aren't stacking up in the back room anymore, waiting to be decanted. They're pretty much counted and accepted in real time, in seconds, broken out onto the sales floor. The fantastic view that you might have when you see what happens at Uniqlo or Decathlon, where you do self-checkout, where you put all the items into the tub and it's instantly populated onto a screen and you can transact and move. So that frictionless piece, I think at store level, I think that the fantastic benefits we see at store level can more than be replicated in supply chain. That ability to absolutely audit all your inbound goods, and whether you're using robotics and AMR to shift, pick, allocate, locate, transport, all that data in logistics is another massive space for RFID. And we're seeing increasingly overseas where always-on technology, overhead RFID, always-on, looking down across large footprints in supply chain. And you think of the types of sheds for logistics that are built in the US, in Europe and the US, huge square meterage of logistics space that is always monitored in terms of RFID from top down. And that's not only in logistics, it's in production workflows as well. So manufacturing, what is at this station now, what's the disposition of this particular item, product, label as it moves from station 1 to station 2? Is there a time KPI between those 2 points? When is it expected at station 3? All this can be monitored by RFID in terms of always on. So I'm really excited by the prospect of what happens in logistics and at source data at item level.
Yeah, RFID in stores has usually been dependent on handhelds, and we've got a couple of us here for anyone watching the video, but they're dependent on user operating, and they're only as busy as the user using them. So the overhead solutions that are coming to market now, how do you think that will affect store operations?
I think there's an application absolutely for it. I think the combination of overhead and handheld in terms of supplemental data is really important. So I think you'll get this ecosystem where your primary read is from always on overhead. The supplemental reads will be done at associate level with a handheld. I think that all that data feeds into this constant view of your inventory footprint, rather than, as you mentioned before, dependent on a sales associate or a team member taking that data. You'll always have baseline data and then be able to be forensic around what that supplemental data tells you.
Yeah, I think the scope for overheads is dramatic in terms of zoning, being able to tell what's where in a store and enhancing that merchandise capability that at the moment a handheld can tell you what you have but not necessarily where it is without the locate feature. So you're right. I feel like both will exist side by side, handhelds being complementary while overheads provide the sort of backbone of the data that's always on in the store.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. The ecosystem of complementary technology around vision is also a layer into this as well. So where are our customers moving around the store and overlaying that with the merchandise that they might be interacting with. If we can always see that data, we can make better decisions around where do we merchandise, what do we merchandise. So yeah, I think and as we push more data into AI, we talk about RFID in terms of being a data engine, then companies that are already on this journey and taking inventory data can push more effective or more accurate inventory data into AI for forecasting, understanding demand, weather analysis. How does the weather in the next 3 months affect what I'm bringing in? What are these designs going to be on trend in terms of the overall market movements? So without that item level data, how do we talk to AI? We can't talk to AI in terms of spreadsheets, in terms of once a year view of our business. We need to be always fed. It's a data engine. The large language models work on constant data, always refreshing. So I think there's lots of levers that will draw people to item level inventory driven by RFID. It's data. It could be sales uplift, labour savings. It could be sustainability. It could be the understanding of serialised data and how does the consumer interact with that serialised data. But in terms of floor space in logistics, production, and stores, I think there's an ecosystem that you'll find more and more companies adopting. Larger footprint stores will probably be this hybrid of what is overhead and what is handheld.
Yeah, I agree. There's certainly a tipping point of how much merch is moving, how fast the turnover is, your accuracy. The faster things turn over is going to drop. So having that always on view is helpful, and particularly in a larger format store where your planogram could be quite complex. You might be having hundreds of lines of product on display, and having to have compliance with that is quite difficult without a zoned RFID solution to tell you what's where. Also, change rooms. We haven't really touched on change rooms, but they are certainly seen as this sophisticated, exciting technology that RFID can deliver. And I've seen a couple of videos on social media recently on this. But talking about, I guess, taking this foundational technology of inventory and then opening up surprise and delight features for stores. So after the e-com boom, we're back in stores and we want to make them fun and exciting. What can we do with RFID?
Yeah, I think fitting rooms are super exciting in terms of RFID. Absolutely. The view of what's in a change room is currently lost. Without RFID, it's just he or she might go into a change room with 5 or 6 products or however many products, and it's behind the curtain or behind the door, and that is a lost conversation. There is very little interaction until the curtain opens or the door opens, and then you've got to try and pick up this narrative around how did you go? Or it's a scenario where it's a knock on the door or a quiet voice outside the fitting room. Are you okay? And how are you going? And it's a difficult it's a difficult space to be able to understand, but not if you've got RFID data and interacting with the client. So a scenario would be the client's walking around the store and sales associates engaging with them, and they're building a shopping list or building a basket of product as they go around the store. And the associate could call forward to a change room and understand that she's working with Janet, and Janet is going to a change room with 4 or 5 items that we understand what they are, and Janet's name is on the change room when she gets there. So Janet's now personalised her change room. She's in the change room and she's hung up her product, and all her products that are hung up are populated on a screen. So there's an RFID reader and an antenna, take all the information from the items and populate it on a screen. So now we get into this scenario where this is really cool and interactive. This is the most fun change room I've been involved in. So there's an immediate buy-in. This store is cool. This brand is cool. And then I can, what does the screen do? So I touch the screen and I tried the 8 on, but Janet's not an 8. She might be a 6 or she might be a 10. So I can call forward and I can get this immediate interaction with the team member or the associate to bring the best size, right, or the required size. And then there might be a bag or a pair of shoes or a belt or an earrings that are associated products with that dress. And all this comes out of image servers that, again, the brand has worked really hard to coordinate these associated or these parent-child association images. So without that data at item level, we're not able to understand what the customer might require. And we've had conversations around this before, where the data around getting customers into the change room is half the battle. If you get customers into change room, you're exponentially more likely to have a successful outcome in terms of what is sold. If the customer can't find what they want on the floor, they'll more than likely walk out and try and shop a like product that is available to them. So that's the broken promise number one. But how do we make sure that we're giving the customer the holistic view, or the whole total view of the range of product that we want them to see? Okay, this is great. So now we've got Janet in the change room, and she's really happy with everything that she's purchased. But there's a couple of things she's tried on that weren't quite right. Okay, so previously that was a conversation that design and sales teams or the floor teams would have this anecdotal back and forth about, because there was no data to support. Designers saying, no, it's great, it's fantastic. The fabric is great, the fit is great. Store teams are saying, well, it's not quite fitting right. There is an issue here. So now we can understand times of how many times was that item tried on and not transacted. The data might lead us to believe that we can do an analysis on, let's check that. And River Island in the UK have come up with some great feedback and stories and case studies around the sizing of their product being not quite right, being a little bit small. So what they were seeing was that this delta, this gap between what was tried on and sold or tried on and purchased, led them to do an analysis of the actual size of the product that wasn't being transacted. And they were finding that people that were looking for that would normally be a small were having to buy medium because their smalls, unfortunately, were under spec. But without the data in terms of being able to check that trend, to be able to dig into the analysis and drive insights from fitting room interactions, they would have been at a loss. They would have had no smalls sold, and they would have had all these medium and larges. So now Janet's happy. She's at the counter. She's transacted, and we can talk about how long she was in the change room for. We can build a profile around the total view of the items that she took into the store, and that might lead into, hey, Janet, just wanted to remind you, so there's an e-commerce play after that or a personalisation play after that. This is all driven by data. Change rooms are, in retail terms, they're a black hole. You actually there's fantastic sayings around RFID where RFID shines a light and gives full visibility. but you can't shine a light in a change room because it's not a good look.
It's not
right?
appropriate.
It's not appropriate. So now we have all the data that can help us understand what the hell is going on in our change rooms, and I think that's a game changer.
Oh, 100%. And like you say, it all comes back to good data feeding into systems that people can review, the cross-selling opportunity of, hey, we saw you try on these blue pants. Have you seen the blue shoes or the matching earrings? All of that just being on a screen in front of someone, inviting curiosity and playfulness in a space that's often seen as a bit claustrophobic and a bit awkward. And, that awkward tap on the door, hi, how you going in there? And you're just left waiting for that pair of jeans or that something that you're trying on. So RFID really bringing what is commonly a bit of a not very nice experience often in a change room to bring the surprise and delight and inviting that loyalty and inviting that fun.
Yeah, especially if you're an aspirational brand. If you want to be different, if you want to differentiate yourself from the rest of the market, take your customer on a journey, give them an experience, and that's what's important around bricks and mortar. So, and then I've seen workflows. I've seen in technology workflows where you can post what you're wearing in a change room and get immediate feedback. Again, I think the customer view of stores, I think there's a missing piece that retailers have been a little bit slow to grasp, is that the education, the customers are more educated than ever before. Their ability to do research and shop prior to actually getting to a physical store is off the charts. So if we're educated and we're looking at phones and we're looking at interfaces and we're going into stores educated, how do I get an e-commerce experience? How do I give my clients and customers an e-commerce view of in a store? It's interactive with screens. So there has to be some medium, and I think change rooms is a perfect scenario. There has to be some medium where this is native to me while I'm in a change room. I'm going to select another item. I'm going to pull another item forward. I'm actually really comfortable in here. It's beautifully lit. There's a seat for me to sit on. It shouldn't be an in and out. It should be an enticement to understand what else is there. What else can I discover? But we don't have that at the moment. It's this predetermined view of, I've got these things, I'm going to try them on.
If they don't work, well, I'm out of here. ...
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And so the opportunity is there for clienteling as well, where if Steve comes into the store, we know Steve, we can pull up our profile of Steve. Steve likes black jeans and Steve likes crew neck T-shirts. Steve, come check out our new range of crew neck T-shirts.
Perfect. How seamless is that? And we talk about seamless and frictionless and data-driven. This is utopia in terms of what a customer might expect you to be able to do in your store. So we're missing that at the moment. I think we need greater RFID adoption in terms of what we've spoken about in terms of business efficiencies and savings and potential sales uplift. But the customer experiential piece, I think that's a massive opportunity as well. And then to be able to tell your customers and clients what your sustainability view is on what the journey of this product is. And now we get into the serialization, is the EPC level information that is basically the backbone of RFID.
Just quick, Steve, what's an EPC?
Electronic product code. So whereas a barcode is a very limited field of information, electronic product code contains lots of different information. So it could be the GTIN, it could be the company prefix, it could be the size, color, price, and moreover, we're getting closer to RFID capability in smartphones. I mean, Zebra's latest release, I think we have.
We've got it here.
Yeah.
RFID in the back of a smartphone format for those who are watching the video. Your traditional format needing a handheld like this, And now just a standard looking phone thing, tap that on an RFID tag.
Yeah, fantastic. So really need to increase the speed of adoption in Australia only if it's for business efficiency and productivity gains. And I think that it's always been pointed at that. The data that RFID at item level drives flows into all those productivity and efficiency gains. So there's more and more as time progresses. There's more and more reasons for companies to use it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 12, 24 months.
Over the next 12, 24 months from the LogiQ-On side, we're already getting interest from larger format stores interested in overheads. They've got hundreds of square meters to cover and just cutting down that handheld labor element of investigating what's where. Some people might not be already aware, but there's Kmart and Big W have been on this journey for a while, even some sexy robots wandering around your nearest Kmart. And yeah, I think people might be surprised as to the spectrum of brands that are already on RFID, but also who's not on RFID. But with all the different levers we've sort of spoken about, the commercial elements driving RFID, the new one that's sort of, well, maybe not new, but more pressing and becoming more pressing is sustainability and the environmental footprint of product. How do you see RFID playing a role in that?
Yeah, the communication to the customer about a buying decision around the sustainability journey, the carbon footprint of the thing that they're considering purchasing is really, really important across generations. So how does RFID play a part in that? The unique identifier aspect or the serialization aspect of RFID can give you the license plate of the actual thing that you're looking at. So a little black dress size 10 from the same brand has the same barcode, has the same SKU, stock keeping unit, across 100 of them. But in RFID terms, each of those little black dresses has a different license plate. So it's 100 different codes that are allocated at item level. So this EP, electronic product code level. So the provenance of a particular thing is traceable. It's not just one of many, it's one of one. So I think the way that plays into the encoding around a particular journey of an item gets really interesting as it gets more complex. So you might have worked with a factory to make that little black dress that was based in China, but you move production to Bangladesh because Bangladesh had a factory that had better working practices, for example, as a hypothetical. And so now we get into the situation where you can now tell the customer by that unique trace or that EPC, that serialized number, that reference that goes onto that item that comes out of Bangladesh now, that it's actually coming from a company that could be a B Corp compliant company, as previously it wasn't. So we're able to constantly update the data, the history, the provenance of any product based on an electronic product code. So I think the sustainability piece and the conversation around farm to fork or from cotton grower to finished garment becomes more visible and more transparent. And when we roll into things like blockchain, EPCs in blockchain, you get this constant view, this irrefutable view of the journey of the item. So I think it's really important. I think it'll be increasingly important in Australia in terms of what happens around seamless, but certainly in terms of European DPP legislation and what's happening in California and different parts of the US. I think that there is a momentum around the individual item and the absolute the absolute integrity of the information that's associated with that item. And I think RFID and EPCs play an integral role in that foundational data. When it comes to the journey of the product that's been manufactured, I've been manufactured, but here's an idea about where you can get this repaired. And if it's unrepairable, how is it rebirthed? What's the feedstock of the actual raw materials, and how are those raw materials used? Again, if we look at the Patagonia view of the world, there is this ability to buy, repair, rebirth, recycle. That can all be driven into the data associated with the item in terms of, again, whether it's a choke point in supply chain, whether it's a recycler that's able to interrogate that RFID trace data to understand how they utilize that item. I think there's an ever-growing ecosystem of data requirements that will become more and more important over time. But ultimately, the customer is on the end of all this. What is the brand promise to the customer? And what does the data tell the customer? That's all going to be driven at item level.
And I think it has a large role to play in the secondhand market of products as well. We're seeing sewn-in RFID labels becoming more popular in product. If those aren't clipped out, they're able to be used by Salvation Army or any other sort of secondhand clothing market to identify that product to help it in its own system. So do you think there's extra scope for perhaps mandating sewn-ins or moving in that direction?
Yeah, I think mandate is a word that we probably hear more and more in terms of life cycle of product. And I know we spend a lot of time probably talking about apparel, but I think in terms of any product. So with DPP legislation, I think it's construction materials, tyres, batteries, apparel, footwear.
Car parts.
Car parts. So we're going to see the requirement across different, what I would call a feedstock or an input, right? So, but in terms of certainly the secondhand market, if there's the education piece around a sew-in stays in, and there's particular notifications around an EPC or an RFID logo, so that doesn't come out of the garment, or you might have companies utilize RFID thread more, but certainly as an option that's utilized now in a lot of apparel brands. I think sew-ins and leaving them in the garment and actually having that secondary market understand when that item was made, where it was manufactured, not so much the layers of ownership, but it was definitely manufactured then. It's available for sale now. I can still utilize that data in my secondhand shop system because that's now I can make that data part of my master data file, and then my point of sale will understand all the items that I'm bringing in. But it certainly makes receiving and sortation of secondhand goods easier. I mean, we all know, we've all heard the costs associated with goods that are just dumped and can't be saved, and there's this unfortunate outcome where the charities are responsible for millions of dollars of landfill. So, and they inherit it. There's nothing to do with it. There's no data to tell them. There's no efficient way to receive it in or to understand what its journey has been. So, I think certainly in terms of some categories of product, keeping RFID trace in garments makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the ability to look at a garment, even when you're thrifting perhaps, hold your phone over it and go, oh, well, this was made in 2023 and at least have an idea of where your garments come from or how old it is. Like the joy of finding something that's actually vintage when you're thrift shopping compared to something that just looks old. Now you'll have the power to actually do that.
Yeah, and we haven't really touched on grey market or counterfeit either yet, but I think that all plays into the legitimacy of the item level data. This print could be you might have seen this print represented by a brand, but once you scan, you understand that it's actually not a genuine article because the data on the item will tell you that. So I think here's another layer. Once you understand the ability to use data at different toll gates, just adds more and more value.
Yeah, and you're right. We haven't spoken about the security element, but I did hear a recent example from a loss prevention manager where they were able to recover a lot of organised crime stolen garments and identify them on the spot through RFID that these were stolen from this specific store. Because of that item level identification, they hadn't passed through their POS and they knew that these pants were stolen from Chadstone on the 16th. Hey, Mr. Policeman, these are definitely ours and they're definitely stolen. Whereas if they just have a barcode, it's much, much harder to prove.
Yeah, it's a really cool scenario, isn't it? To be able to identify what you are recovering. And I think the ability for exit systems now to give time, vision, size, color, price, quantity, rather than just an agnostic beep. There's this data-rich view of a theft event, and the disposition of the product once it's in store is basically unsold. It needs permission from a point of sale to be allowed to leave and be a legitimate purchase. So there is no alarming of the antennas at the exit in that case. But again, if it's taken and it's not presented at point of sale and it is a stolen or a theft event, we have this data-rich view, this overlay of, particularly in terms of vision, when you're talking to law enforcement about the quality of the data in the brief that they're presented, there's not a lot of data that can be generated in terms of a standard theft system because it doesn't have a view of what left. But here we are in RFID terms. We can give, we talk about ecosystem technologies before. If you've got a vision overlay, you can get pre and post event vision. You can build a brief around the offender, but you can also absolutely validate what that offender had interacted with and what was stolen. And when you recover, the brief is built around, we understand that this exited the store, like you said, it's exited Chadstone, and here it is in your house. That's the end-to-end data loop. So in terms of exit systems, I love that whole scenario where you get this data-rich view of what is happening in your store. And again, in terms of, okay, in real time we understand that it went. Now we actually can push replenishment to store because we cannot sell that now because we know that it's been stolen and we've got all the data that tells us it's been stolen. So now we work on replenishment so we don't break that customer promise and it's available for someone else to buy.
Another example of where real-time overheads would fill that gap immediately of all of a sudden all of our black pants have just exited the store. We don't need someone to go out with a handheld and validate that. We just know because it's no longer in the store. Triggers a replen. If it's in the back, maybe we can get some more. And if not, well, the store will get refilled immediately.
Yeah, and we don't discover this as an afterthought. We can actually manage it in real time. So operationally, yes, it's a terrible thing that we've been shelf swept for whatever product it is, but we are still available to. We're still able to operate and recoup and make retail profit based on. We just need to get more product to that store because we know exactly what that store won't be able to sell because it's no longer available.
That's right. You keep the promise to the customer. They're coming in, they've still got the stuff there, or worse still, if it was a click and collect and got swiped. But it's been happening.
Yeah, and we really haven't touched on it either, but that promise of click and collect can get quite clunky without real-time data. The gap between someone calls ahead at a store to buy a product and transacts over the phone, and then that product might be put away in the back room and somehow it makes its way back onto the sales floor as a restock, and the customer that comes in to buy it unfortunately can't because it's been purchased by someone else. That clunky nature around click and collect in terms of RFID is that item is reserved and available in your inventory, but not available for sale. So even though it could be presented by some sort of process failure in store, even if it was presented back to point of sale, it would flag as being reserved as click and collect. So here we are, we're driving into this item level data, but the disposition of the label is as important in terms of mirroring what your operational workflows are in store.
Yeah, like if something is already reserved, it can't be sold, it flags up on the screen. I mean, it shouldn't get to that point anyway, but if store operations are loose, these things can happen. So yeah, heaven forbid you put in your click and collect for the last order or the last unit, which you know it's the last unit because RFID tells you so. There's no buffers. It can't go and get you a second one. Sorry, it's gone. You'd be so disappointed. So yeah, that data to say this is reserved for Simon when he gets in here, don't touch it.
Yeah, and again, when I spoke about Lowe's a little bit earlier and the customer promise around schoolwear in particular, that's been a game changer for them in being able to make sure that absolutely every garment that they're contractually obliged to have available for mums and dads as they come in and do their school buys is available for sale. But more importantly, reserving goods is actually reserving goods. That's breaking a brand promise to a customer is one thing, but Saran's really clear around when you break a promise to a school mum and she is in there to be a quick in and out, that can get escalated quite quickly. So if we don't break the brand promise, if we don't break our promises to customers are happy and they come back and they shop again and again and again.
And you're just making your store a nicer place for your store staff as well by giving them the tools to give customers what they want when they want. They don't have to and ah or he and haw. Maybe we have it, maybe we don't. It could be here, it might not. They can be really confident because I hear that a lot, like orders don't get fulfilled or staff don't go and check because they don't trust their pods.
The morale uplift in empowering your store teams with RFID, I mean, we've both seen it in real time. I mean, I think your comment might have been that some of the store teams when you were working early days with the Lululemon were saying that don't take it off me.
Yeah, I'll kill you if you take it off me.
I'll kill you if you take it off me, right? So here we are. We're empowering store teams. We can attract RFID native talent from different retailers. So all of this leads to, and especially in terms of the state of violence in store. Now, I'm not saying that RFID solves that, but the retail is a different world. Showing up to a retail store now is a different world. The risk, the potential for harm is really, really high. So if we don't want our teams in store to be living in this state of heightened anxiety. We need to be able to bring it down a level where the task, the operational flow in store is really empowering and it's driven by technology. So unfortunately, when those bad actors are in store, that's unfortunate.
Take a break.
Yeah.
And go from when those bad actors are in store.
So when those bad actors are in store, that's unfortunate, but it's one of those ones where I've just lost my train of
That's
thought.
all right. It's reducing friction and potential for incidents because the friction's not there. The data is good. You can trust it. Here's your order. On your way.
Perfect.
So it was
Bad actors.
bad actors.
That when those bad actors are in store, that's unfortunate, but we're not taking an everyday transaction to a point where it could potentially escalate. Our everyday transactions are really smooth and quite enjoyable. So if we can change just that aspect of retail store teams' daily life, then I think that's well worth investigating as well.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the transformation journey is, everyone thinks of the top line and the sales and all of that, but actually the improvement in store morale and retention of staff even of those that have RFID just makes for such a better working environment because you can trust the data, you can find things easily, you have confidence that your management team is investing in you, the business is going well, they're investing in platforms, and it just, as a whole, makes being on the front line of retail, which, as we just mentioned, can be sometimes a bit fraught, does make you feel a bit better and more secure.
Yeah, and I think I come back to the comments around having worked with store teams that are using RFID and loving it, and this is a game changer. No longer we're having to do all this manual task around setting up for stock takes, and then you mentioned stock take in terms of retail stores, and there's an immediate crash. I mean,
Yep.
So now we can change that. But the smiles on the faces of teams that we work with, they're priceless. It's a big shift in their normal way of working.
It's really rewarding when you can put a sled or a tablet in someone's hand and go, hey, you don't have to manually cycle count anymore.
At any age, right? We work with cohort teams in stores they're in their 50s and 60s and 70s even. So it's not even a young technology. You don't really have to be a techno person to get it. There's different software programs are written now where they're really, really intuitive, and when managed correctly and when I suppose enhanced with quite in-depth training, the embracing of it is really for anyone of any level across whether it's a technical awareness or age.
Steve, we've covered a lot of topics today, covered a lot of ground. If you have encouraged anyone to get started, how should they begin?
A label on a thing.
I don't like how that
cool.
didn't sound neat. Steve, we've covered a lot of ground today and you've told us a lot of stories and all the benefits of RFID. People who are encouraged to begin, where should they start?
With a label on a thing. Get a label, get an enabler onto your product. And overall just start. Trust the methodology of the people that you take advice from. Step out in clear phasing what your project is going to look like. Start with the why. Understand clearly why you are doing this and point RFID and the project outcomes around your why. And that why will change over time, but we've got to really clearly distill a why. And and businesses have to understand that is the problem that they are trying to solve. We have an inventory problem. We have a chargeback problem. We invest too much in labour in stores, and we need to point that labour at customer rather than task. We don't have our data isn't shared across our business intelligence platforms effectively. Our ERP doesn't really reflect our physical stock position. We think we can be a better business. We know that inventory is a problem. These are some of the whys. And sometimes it's a big shift for companies to even look internally and say they have a problem. Yeah.
Just like an individual.
And we're not here to tell you what the problem is. you have to understand that you've got a problem and we can help you solve it. So starting with a label on a thing, once you get the label on the thing, we can understand what the day in the life of that thing looks like. That's where you start.
Thanks, Steve. Just tag it.
Pretty much just tag it, right?
And if you had to sum up the last 3 years of RFID, what would it look like?
It's getting better. It's the momentum, the conversations around RFID are increasingly meaningful. There's a lot more understanding of what the technology does, and part of what we do, and our whole collective is educate around. It's not a technology for technology's sake. It's a technology that drives data and outcomes. So it's one of the few technology investments that businesses that can make that will drive the return on investment type return on investment that we'll see with RFID. And I think that's gaining more and more traction.
Yeah, certainly the more stories that get out there of success, I think the more it encourages people to look into it.
Yeah, and the owners of the projects that we can currently see, and as you've mentioned, that are coming, they'll more than likely make themselves available to have conversations at leadership level to help transfer the information of their journey. So that all feeds into this fantastic momentum piece that we keep talking about. Momentum is high. And I think, as you've mentioned, that next 12 months where companies that you didn't know were on the journey that are actually on the journey start to share their stories, I think we'll just see a continuation of that momentum.
Steve, if people want to reach out to you, get in touch, learn more, or find out how to work with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, look, inventorysolutions.com, find our website. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I try and be as high profile as I can on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people that feed into a network of experts, of mentors that can share information, case studies, nuggets of information that can demystify a little bit about the RFID. But as I was saying earlier, it's a technology not for technology's sake. It has the capability to transform your business. It has to be measured in how it's utilised, and the messaging around why we're doing it needs to be really, really clear. But once you embrace either the problem you're trying to solve or that the technology can solve the problem that you have, then you're on the journey.
Steve, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time and showing off your expertise in RFID. It's obvious how knowledgeable you are and your experience really comes through. So thanks for joining us today on LogiQ-On Talking Tech.
Thanks, Simon. It's been a blast.
So welcome. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time as we continue exploring the future of workplace technology.